This is part of a topographical map showing the landowners around the Mountain Meadows massacre. My pen is pointing to the area that I believe the massacre occurred. What do we see here? All of this is owned by LDS. These are Mormons. They're all Mormons. But the LDS owns all of this. This says Evans, Burgess, LDS. This says Men's Massacre Site. See, it's on this side of the road, right in that area where the turnout is. The turnout that I've stood at many times trying to sort this issue out. So I'm saying here, they're saying the men were murdered here. If you follow Carleton's report and take those measurements, you either wind up in here or you'll wind up over here. So I don't know exactly what's going on here, but to me it just goes to the fantastic way Mormons are concealing the truth. And none of this reconciles the issue that Rogers rises by saying that he's walking parallel to a small ravine, which I found just sort of up the road here off the map. There is no creek running parallel to the road here. This is only about 3/4 of a mile. You have to be a little over a mile away. And that's either places you out this way, or if you swing from the camp and go up, you wind up in here. This is showing an old Spanish trail remnant. I'm saying the crime took place over here. This is that gravel pit, I believe. They're saying either inside this box or in this area. Now here's a map. This says 1 mile 565 yards. But Carleton is shooting, or Prince, the cartographer, is shooting line of sight. And line of sight puts you over here. Or you have to go further north this way. 1 mile 565 yards is 6,975 feet. So you can see why I'm kind of persistent here. So I've got us just inside the highway here, and here's that turnout. Same number. So this is the creek that I've been alleging maybe the Dunlop girls ran up. The road we've been examining along this way. The creek crosses the road, and this is what people keep trying to do, is put this massacre down in here. If you follow the straight line that he draws, you have to wind up somewhere along here. So again, I'm placing it in here. You can just barely squeeze it in on this side of the road. To reconcile William Rogers' statement about the gulch next to the road, I don't know if we have to, but it puts you up in here close to 2 miles out. So he insists he's walking along a ravine parallel to the road, and that's right up in here. In any case, it's not down in here. It has to be up in here, or, in my opinion, along here. Just like Walker Turley Leonard show us. I'm reading William Rogers' confession. The immediate locality of the massacre of the Immigrant Party is about 4 miles from the ranch. On the road leading south, the valley at the place slopes gently towards the south. A small ravine runs parallel with the road on the right-hand side at the spot. It is about 4 miles to Hamblin's from here. The ground for a distance of more than 100 yards around the central point was covered with the skeletons and bones of human beings, interspersed in places with rolls or bunches of tangled or matted hair, from which its length evidently belonged to females. In places the bones of small children were lying side by side with those of grown persons, as if parent and child had met death at the same instant and with the same stroke. Skipping ahead, in a gulch or a hole in the ravine by the side of the road A large number of leg and arm bones and also of skulls could be seen sticking above the surface as if they had been buried there, but the action of the water and the digging of the wolves had again exposed them to sight. The entire scene was too horrible and sickening for language adequately to describe. It's vertical again, but you can see there's a lot of trails out here. We would assume that most of these are animal trails. The closest thing I can see that's in the general area is this line of trees, right? So that the road may have been along here. That's what he seems to be describing. Is this area, we're just not finding a ravine parallel to the road the way we'd like to. However, if we go a half-mile north, still next to the highway, we do have a ravine here. So he's saying he's seeing bodies. This would make sense, even though everything else places it a half-mile down the road. He's saying he's moving along here, and he's seeing bodies. This is where the maps I'm showing you, the ravine. Alright, but up here is a half a mile. Here's your road to Pinto today. There's a motocross track right here. Anyhow, there's a ravine going right up this way. So that's as far as we're going to get today. Here's the Prince map. See, it's a straight line. Someone took the trouble to translate it. So let's take a look. So Joshia Gibbs, this 1910 edition, I'll show you the mistake he makes. I think this mistake may be accumulating. This map is often used. So he places the slaughter right up in here, but that is nowhere near a mile, 1,565 yards. This says road to Cedar City in Pinto, so we know it occurred down along here. The road now would come up this way, and you go out here, and then to get into Hamblin's, you pick up a piece of road out here and come in. It shows buildings up in here on the opposite side of where Hamblin's place is. But anyhow, this only gives you about a half a mile. This is not right. So Bagley's book makes the same mistake. I've gone into this in another video. I agree with the road shape here. That's why I'm saying it can't happen over here. And the rim of the basin is not in here. It's up in here. And this just isn't 1 mile, 565 yards. Up here, somewhere along in here is where I found the small ravine along the side of the road. And right up here is where the little motocross track is. This is the road you take to get to Pinto now. There's an original typed copy of the Carleton report. It says right there that it's 4 miles, 1,000 yards to Hamblin's place. Jackson said there were 60 Mormons, led by Bishop John D. Lee, a prominent man of the church. They were all painted and disguised as Indians. Jackson's an Indian. Same page 11. Prince stood at the ditch, which was in the corral, and placed some men at the spring 28 yards distant, and they could see each other men's heads. Quoting someone unnamed, there is legal proof that this property was sold at the official tithing office of the church. Whitlock says that the man who reported this could not report the details of the massacre without tears and trembling. He was so horrified at these atrocities, he fled away from Utah to California. He saw children clinging around the knees of the murderers, begging for mercy and offering themselves as slaves if their lives could be spared, but their throats were cut from ear to ear as answer for their appeal. Hamblin himself showed Sergeant Fritz of my party a spot on the right side of the road where the partially covered up remains of many bones. I gathered up the disjointed bones of 34 persons. The number could easily be told by the pair of shoulder blades and by lower jaw skulls and other parts of skulls, etc. Page 20, we're almost there. So he describes the mothers and the babies in their arms that had been shot. The scene of the massacre, even at this late date, was horrible to describe. Women's hair in detachable locks and masses clung to the sage bushes and was strewn over the ground in many places. Parts of little children's dresses and a female costume dangled from the shrubbery or lay scattered about, and among these here and there on every hand for at least a mile in every direction, by 2 miles east and west, there gleamed, bleached white by the weather, the skulls and other bones of those who had suffered. A glance into the wagon, when all these had been collected, revealed a sight which can never be forgotten. Down here now, where the men were, 1 mile 565 yards. Then to the next point was 1 mile 135 yards. And to the swell across the valley called the rim of the basin is 1 mile 334 yards. And to Hamblin's house, 4 miles 1,049 yards. Judge Cradlebaugh says that the Mormon jury's attempt to administer justice to this territory are a ridiculous farce. He believes the territory ought to be put under martial law, which is true, but it wasn't done. Brigham Young issued 2 martial law edicts. All of this filth went down, whether it's the Mountain Meadows or the Aiken murders or any number of them we're not going to get into here. Nothing was done. They were given complete immunity for this crime. Martial law would, at best, be a temporary expedient. Crime is found in the footsteps of the Mormons wherever they go. And so the evil must always exist, so long as the Mormons themselves exist. This is not an exaggeration. What is their history? What are their antecedents? Here's the Prince map. See, it's a straight line. This says 5 feet deep. Of course, ditches, fires. Well, so if I understand it right, then they are camped on that side of the creek. If this map was better, we would see the contours and we'd understand where they crossed this ravine with something like 40 wagons and all those cattle. Anyhow, that's my problem, I guess.